Hello, Salam Beleza, Jacob Khan, brand ambassador to Goldwell here, coming to you live-ish from my very own home in Roswell, Georgia. I can't be with you there in Knoxville this year, but I think it's such a cool thing that your salon is putting on this event at a drive-in theater. I mean, that is so awesome, and I am going to share with you guys one of my most requested haircuts of this year that I think is going to be even more popular as we head into the fall, as we escape the summer heat, and people don't need to pick their hair up off their neck to escape it. They're going to be more open to cutting their hair short so they don't have to wear that ponytail all the time. So let's get right into it. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to take sort of just a central section, the center section from the center of the front all the way down to the center of the back and split this in half. I personally don't like to have a whole lot of clips in my workspace, so you won't see me doing a lot of pre-sectioning as far as like creating panels, sectioning them up, clipping them away. To me, it makes it more difficult, and a lot of time I'll change my mind as I move through the haircut, and I'll change my sectioning. So for me, I like to work more progressively. So we're just going to start off pushing that hair to the side. We're using a straight razor with no blade here. I'm sorry, no guard. It's got a blade. You need the blade in order to cut the hair. But we're using no guard. That just allows us to use more of the tool and makes us a little bit more accurate when we're cutting with the razor. Think of your regular razor with a guard as almost being like a texturizing scissor. The guard is going to dictate some for you, and it will kind of decide what comes off and what stays on. When you're working with a razor like this, it's almost like your standard scissor where everything is going to be determined by you and your decision making. Our first section is going to be down here, super low, horizontal diagonal forward section. We have some little baby undercutting in here, so we're going to have some hair that falls down, but it's really no big deal. We just want to be able to grab a small amount of hair with our fingers. With this kind of a look, we're calling it the shaggy bob, right? It's going to be a combination of that blunt bob and this sort of modern shag that everybody's been wearing. The first thing I want to do is put in a nice, strong perimeter. So we're going to start off working from the center out to the side, using the heel or the bottom part of the blade, using very small movements of the blade. Your stroke of the blade or the movement of the blade is literally going to determine the texture that you are leaving on the head. So let's take a look at what's in my fingers right there. You can see really strong, really clean line, even though we're working with the razor. Oh, don't mean to flick you off. Yeah, we'll throw that hair away. So we've got our first little guide put in there. We're going to turn a little bit and work here on the opposite side. I'm using strong tension and a low elevation. We need to make sure that the hair is nice and damp. People are often jaded by a razor, I have to say. The clients come in and they see a razor and they're like, oh, I'm really nervous about having a razor on my head. I had a razor cut before and it made my hair feel super damaged. It made me feel like I needed a haircut again. Usually, if that happens, it is not the tool's fault. There's just a few things that we need to be mindful of when we're working with a razor like this. The blade needs to be sharp. Our pressure needs to be light. The blade is literally sharp enough to cut with just the weight of the blade. You don't need to press too hard. And the hair needs to be damp. If the hair starts to dry out too much, then we're going to end up making the hair feel more damaged, start to tear through the cuticle just a little bit. Now with our second section here, we are bringing everything down to a stationary guide, basically down to 0. We have maybe a small amount of elevation there because we're using our fingers to hold the hair, but we don't want any lift. I'm touching the skin there with my fingers. And we're just connecting everything together down here at the bottom. This was already in kind of a bob shape, so you're not seeing too much coming off with these first sections, but remember, no matter what the length, this sort of fundamental sectioning is going to be the same. This could be taking off ½ an inch, or we could be taking off 10 inches. It doesn't matter. It's going to be exactly the same concept. So here in the corner, again, we're bringing this down. On this side, we're using the tip of the blade. Where on the first side, we used the heel or the bottom of the blade. And the reason for that is we just want to keep more and more of the blade away from our client's neck. So here, if I'm using the bottom of the blade, I'm pushing too much of the blade close. I need to use the top of the blade to keep more safety and space away from my client. Now, we're going to continue with those sections, creating essentially a one-length bob first. This has kind of fine hair, so I can take slightly larger sections. But remember, you can't take too big of a section with the razor because it's going to push against the blade. And again, it's going to start to feel less accurate, make your hair feel a little bit frayed, and possibly make it look a little bit damaged. So keep your section sizes manageable and not too large. Again, we're just connecting right to that section. When you're working with a razor, remember, rather than cutting here in your fingers, you're gonna be cutting here on top of your fingers. What that needs to, what you need to think about when you're doing that is that if you're cutting here and you can see the guide in your fingers, you're gonna make things too short. Essentially, what you have to do is see the guide in front of your fingers on the top so that you can cut in the same place. So when you get your tension, make sure you slide just past your guide so that you can actually cut on it, creating that nice one length shape rather than making it shorter and shorter with each cut. Again, we're gonna take kind of a large section here just because the hair is quite fine and we don't have too much to connect in with the one length. Drawing this down, this side using the tip of the blade. We're working here from the center out. With each section, I'm starting to open the blade up just a little bit more. You know that our first section had a very blunt, strong line. Now we've got a little bit of movement, just a little softness there in the line. Oh, here's one little guy. We'll just nip that right off. So each section, we essentially have a slightly longer motion of the blade, starting to build that softness, build that texture into the cut. This is kind of square. I'm really not looking for a lot of angle forward, so I'm not over directing back. I'm not pulling this forward. I'm just drawing this straight down and putting in a nice square line. For this particular look, I really want to have that sharpness and that bluntness around the perimeter, and then we're gonna open it up and create that more loose and shaggy feeling through the interior. So, next section, dropping this all the way down, just like that. You can see I don't really have to use a lot of clips. If this was a client, maybe we would want to, not cover their face up quite so much. But this beautiful doll loves to have a little hair in her face. She's just fun like that, and we're gonna go with it. So we're gonna pull this down again, all the way down to 0. Pretty repetitive, but super important. Now you can see the blade is moving a little bit more than it was, and we can really start to see a little bit of texture in that section. You can really kind of see we have a lot more kind of shred, a lot more short to long action, and that's going to be determined by the movement of your blade. So let's get kind of close on this one so we can see the movement of the blade. Here we have short to long, short to long, short to long, short to long. You see that? So all of our stopping points are in the same place, so it starts here, ends there, starts here, ends there. Gives us these really beautiful, soft, short to long sections, creating a little bit of space so that hair can breathe and move. It's always going to give you a little bit more softness than a scissor, but it still can have the same precision and accuracy that you're looking for in the shape. So we're getting to the side here now. I'm gonna start to shrink the movement of the blade down a little bit again, now that we're moving to the side of the head. Specifically because we're gonna have less hair there, and I don't wanna end up creating a hole here around the ear, so we're shrinking the movement of the blade down, a shorter stroke of the blade to create that nice, strong edge there on the side. So we have more softness here, a little bit more strength through there. Let's just finish this side up. We'll drop this side down all the way. Again, we know that we don't have a whole lot of hair to connect in because this model has such fine hair, we can get away with taking slightly larger sections. If this was more coarse hair, more thick hair, even curlier hair, I'd want to take smaller sections so that I can work a little bit more accurately. But when you have a small amount of hair like this, you can get away with larger sections. So again, here in the back, behind the ear, where we want to have that softness, we're really going to open that blade up. We can get all of that kind of nice, soft, shreddy action like that. And then when we get here to the side, that's past the hairline, we're going to start to close our movement down, shorter stroke of the blade, so that we get this stronger, more blunt section there in our fingers. Drawing that straight down. It still needs to be nice and clean, nice and combed out, good and even tension. Draw that all the way down, shrinking this movement. Short stroke of the blade. You can see, you can be incredibly accurate when it comes to working with a razor. Still a nice, strong, straight line. Just a little bit edgier, a little softer than a scissor will give it to you. All right, so we've got our nice shape in, nice square, easy shape. You can see that by opening the blade up a little bit in the back, it gives us some nice bevel, a little bit of softness and movement in the back. Let's see if we can repeat that on the opposite side. What's the most difficult thing about cutting hair? Balance, I would say, is the most difficult thing about cutting hair. I always end up with one good side and then one side that's a little bit harder for me. And generally the right side, if you're right-handed, is going to be your harder side. So, and that rings true for me in this haircut as well. So let's see if I can do it. We're going to draw this down again. Instead of using the heel, we're now going to use the tip of the blade. So I'm going to lift the corner so that I know I'm really just working with the tip of the blade. We have slightly longer movements of the blade now because we are getting kind of high up on the head. We want to have that softness. So short to long, short to long, short to long. Still using the underneath as a guide, getting all that nice, soft, shreddy action. And I'm turning with it. I'm just going to follow it around, but making sure that I don't actually make it shorter. I want it to stay nice and square in the back. So drawing that down, still an open blade until we get right here behind the ear, and that will be our last bit before we start to close that blade down a little bit more. I'll have a little bit to connect in right there. If you've ever missed something, you can just come back and isolate that hair that you missed, knock it off with the razor, no big deal. So now that we're getting to the side, anything that comes above the ear, I'm just going to take this section from the back to the front right away. All the way from the back, all the way to the front. And we're going to draw that down one more time. In the back, low elevation, good strong tension with a long movement of the blade. We want that softness in there. We're going to follow the line around. We're still in the back hairline, so we're going to keep that long motion of the blade as we go. Very nice. Then when we get to the side, where the hairline starts to jump up a little bit, we're going to draw this down, and we're going to use a smaller movement of the blade, which gives us just a little bit more blunt, precise looking edge. I want that blunt bob feel along the perimeter. And then we're going to really open it up and give us that soft, shreddy, shaggy look that everybody wants, but just on a shorter frame. We'll drop down our last section here. Notice that the hair is staying nice and damp. I don't actually have any cutting lotion or anything like that, but if I did, you know what I'd like to use, especially if I'm going to style it straight, I really love to use the Just Smooth. Even the serum from Just Smooth is really, really nice as a cutting lotion. It keeps the hair gliding really easy, keeps your sections really clean. But for this, I actually think I want to do something a little bit bigger, a little more texture, a little bit more wave. So I'm just working with water as my cutting lotion rather than anything else. Keeping this down at natural fall. So you don't want to comb it back. I don't want to draw this back like this. I'm literally going to draw it down to the side. Exactly where it's going to naturally fall. I don't want to force this hair to be somewhere it won't live naturally. So, I always thought that was a funny thing to say. Where does this hair live? Nowhere. It's dead proteins. I feel like there's crickets at the drive-in right now, but it's okay. The jokes are mostly from me, guys. Short strokes here on the side, connecting in our nice, strong, blunt line, and then, bam, just like that, we've got our bob shape. Because of our more open strokes, we get this softness and movement in the back. It gives us this nice contour and bevel. Almost looks graduated, but it doesn't have that old school stack, and everything from the top will come all the way down to the bottom. And then by shortening up our stroke on the side, we get a stronger, cleaner perimeter. So now let's move on to the internal shape and the layer. Now that we've got our perimeter put in, we're going to start to work our internal shape. That's where all that movement and shagginess is going to come from. We're taking a horseshoe section here on the side to create a little bit of movement on the inside, but still make sure that we preserve that strong perimeter. So we've taken this right at the parietal ridge. Now we're going to take a vertical diagonal back section and draw this slightly forward. Anything that we layer, we want to make sure that this stays long here at the bottom. So we're drawing this forward. We're going to use the bottom of the blade, and with a long, soft motion, we're going to start to take that weight out and slide our fingers all the way down so that we get this nice, layered, short to long look in the front, but we keep the corner there. So that way, we start to get that little bit of internal movement. We'll take one more diagonal section. I'm going to draw that forward and see, does any of that want to connect? All right, so we can see, here's our guide on the inside. These shorter pieces right in there. This is what we want to connect. This is the corner we want to keep. So we're going to draw that forward. My fingers slide just past the guide. I'm going to start moving, getting revved up a little bit there. Once I connect, that hair just starts to melt right off, and I'm sliding my fingers down until everything falls out. Last section, let's see if anything wants to reach. Maybe just a teeny little bit there. We'll come in, connect that in, and work all the way down to the bottom. And what you can see, we still have our strong perimeter shape, but we start to get a little bit more softness and layer here around the face. Let's turn her around and do the same thing on the other side. On the other side, we're gonna comb this back. That way the hair is all moving in one direction. We take our section right along the parietal ridge, comb this over the top, just to keep things out of your way and keep a nice clean workspace. Take a vertical diagonal back section, over direct slightly forward with very little elevation. We're gonna use the top of the blade now to start putting in that soft movement and layer, working down slowly, sliding our fingers and keeping that bottom corner. That's the important part. This needs to stay full. No matter how short you want to make this needs to stay there. Otherwise, you start to feel like you've got a little bit of a mullet going on, which can be totally cool if you want a mullet. A mullet is only cool when you want one. So we're pulling that forward, our second section there, looking for my guide, and then I'm going to slide my fingers as I go, connecting to that guide underneath, keeping our bottom corner. Our last section, we're just going to pull all of this forward here just to check. See, we've got a couple little hairs there that we can see through to our guide. I'm going to make sure that those are connected in. It's not too many, but it helps to be thorough, just like that. Beautiful. Draw that down. We still have our nice strong perimeter, and now a little bit more layer and movement around the face. Moving on to our top section, now that we have a little bit of internal movement, this is really where things are going to open up. So let's split this in half. And then we're just going to start to take these almost horizontal sections through, just like that, and then bring this down and forward. If I lift this up, we can really see that internal layering. Like there's that internal layer from the side. Here's our fringe from a previous cut, and what we want to do is start to connect those dots together with a little more elevation. So I'm going to switch to my fine teeth here. I'm going to bring this forward and turn it up like that. I'm going to bring my razor straight up and down, and I'm going to start to create a short to long line right through here. I'm going to use kind of the bridge of the nose as a guide for where I want that to start, and then I'm working with a long stroke of the blade to get a lot of softness there, connecting in from here into that layer that we worked on the side. So let's work one side all the way through. Continue again, another horizontal section through the top. Kind of just dividing that in. Pull this forward, and then we're turning it almost to be flat. So it's basically flat off the top of the head. So I'm going to draw this forward. Then we're going to open that blade up. We want a lot of softness. Letting my fingers slide so I can connect there to the side. I like that that rhymed. Now we're going to do one more. Really, you're just going to keep working through this entire top panel now, drawing all of this hair forward. It gives you a really defined guide. You're just connecting the dots, right? So if we pick up the side, and then we can see, here's our guide on the side, right in there, that shorter bit. Here's our guide from the top, that shorter bit right up there, and we're just gonna connect in this middle stuff. Drawing that forward, once again, turning it, using a very long, soft stroke of the blade, we're gonna connect those two things together. Simple stuff. We want simple, easy to replicate techniques that give you impactful, noticeable results that are going to drive success in the salon. That's why I love to teach you guys haircuts that my clients actually ask me for all the time. So we're starting to get this beautiful, soft, movement-y, shaggy look. Let's go ahead and connect in the opposite side. Horizontal sections across. Draw that hair forward, comb this hair back. I'm going to pull this forward. I have a guide from my first side, I can see right there. And then my shortness from the perimeter, I can see right there. Now, we're gonna lift that up. I'm going to angle my razor down, and we're gonna start working that out just like that. Connecting the dots, we're just working from the fringe to the layer on the internal shape on the side. Another horizontal section. We draw this forward, push that back. We're gonna lift this up, basically pulling straight out. Can we look at it from the side over here? just so we can see the elevation is straight forward. I'm not down, I'm not up here, I'm just drawing it straight forward. So I'm going to draw that forward, wait for my guide right there to fall away, and then we're going to connect the dots with soft, soft movements of the blade. Continuing back, draw that forward. This should be our last section. Things don't want to reach after that. I'm just going to make sure all of that is connected in. Beautiful. You can start to feel for it. Feel, do you have that weight balanced? Is there anything that you miss? Is there anything that stands out? Stunning. We can start to see we get this really soft, beautiful shagginess, and we can see the wave has started to build and come out naturally on its own. Now we have our shape cut in, we're gonna start our styling process. With a look like this, something shaggy, something messy, something undone, I want it to be able to style with your fingers, to be very natural, and to be super low maintenance. So we're gonna use our Curls and Waves Surf Oil, one of my favorite products right now for low maintenance finger styling. We're just gonna spray this in onto kind of damp hair. I don't want it to be, soaking wet. It can be, but for now I think we don't really need too much more water. Just get a nice even coat of that in the hair. And you can see, working with the razor starts to bring out that curl really beautifully. All I need to do is lean my client to the side, shake that hair out, lift, scrunch and squeeze, and then slowly let go. And you can see that beautiful bend and wave just goes into the hair almost immediately and effortlessly. So we're gonna lean to the opposite side. We're gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna lift and scrunch. Let that curl come out. It's finger styling, so you can just kind of piece it in, see what it will do naturally. Then we're gonna do the same thing in the back. I'm gonna lean back. I kind of shake the hair out a little bit to get it into place. And then we're gonna lift and scrunch. I have a little saying about curly hair. We say you should shake it out. You don't want to rake it out. Don't rake your fingers through it. If you want it to have more movement to change, just give it a little shake and it will be okay. From there, I'm going to almost finger place the fringe. So I'm going to kind of turn this to the side and just piece this fringe out where I want to see it. Just a little bit with my fingers, almost holding the center in and pulling these little flicky bits out to the side there so it will dry out of their eyes. If I was a client, I would say air dry. Wait for that to dry and then give it a little shake. Because we don't have time to wait for it to air dry, we kind of do because this is movie magic, I am actually going to diffuse it dry, which is something I do for my clients all the time in the salon as well. So we're going to use our Varus dryer, our Varus diffuser, and we'll be right back with our end result. Alright guys, we are back after our diffuser finish. All we used was our surf oil, our hands, and a diffuser to give this effortless, salty, beachy, and shiny look. It's going to be great for your clients because you know that they're going to be able to do it at home. A simple scrunch and go or diffuser and they are out the door. Let's take a few minutes to talk about what we did. Remember, in 3 simple steps, we achieved this haircut. We cut a strong perimeter that's slightly softer in the back using horizontal sections. We layered the sides short to long from the parietal down, pulling everything forward. Then from the parietal up, we pulled everything forward again and cut another short to long line that was disconnected from the inside. 3 simple steps will give us this impactful result that will look great on almost any client. And to talk about her color for a minute, we took out a block section in the front and used our 10 mint beige to give this soft, natural, minty look. At the base, we have a 10 lavender. For every ounce of 10 lavender, we added 5 grams of 6VV Max to give this anchored, more concentrated look there at the base. And then we blend that down into a 10 rose, all from Colorants, giving us this more soft, oxygenated look on the end. These 3 tones and shades go so beautifully together, and they will fade gorgeous as well. It's such a great, non-committed way to spice up your looks for your blondes this winter. Someone who's looking for something new. Thanks again, guys, for having me. I wish I had even more time with you, and I wish I was there in person. Salon Beleza, it has been a true pleasure, and I can't wait to see you guys next year in Nashville when we actually get to do this in person.